Everybody, I'm going to show you Kahoot, and I want to talk about the two ways that you can find a Kahoot quiz and then share it with your students and why we would go those two separate ways. So when you come to kahoot.com, you'll see up in the top right-hand corner, there's a login button. If you click on that login button, which is just up here, I already have an account, so it just logs me straight in. But if you don't, I assume it'll ask you to sign up. My suggestion is sign up with your Google account. All right, let's log in. And so once you've logged in, this is roughly what you will see. If you haven't used it before, certain things won't be there, like collections and stuff. Now, if I just train your eye up here, you're on the home page. What we would want to do if we want to find a Kahoot is click on the Discover page. So I'm just going to click there. The Discover page gives you all of the quizzes that are already sort of available on Kahoot. And I'll be honest, it's pretty overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff there. So do train yourself to narrow in on the filter here and search for a specific topic that you're after. Be aware that sometimes a topic will not have any Kahoots or any good Kahoots. But let's look for fractions and see what comes up. So as it loads, you can see that there's lots of different Kahoots available. What we want to do is we want to be able to look at them and see if they are exactly what we're after or any good at all or appropriate. So for instance, this top one here, they're ranked by roughly how many people have played the Kahoot. So if I click on this first one, fractions, multiplication of fractions, I know roughly based on the heading that I'm going to be getting fractions and the multiplying of them. Whereas this next one, fraction for beginners, sounds like it might be a bit easier. So depending on what you want is where you'll start looking. This one here has 15 questions. So I'm going to click on it and it will take me into that Kahoots page. Now, it shows me that there are 15 questions up the top here, and it shows me 1 question, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the first step that you'll want to do is actually read the questions and see if they are any good. And over here on the right, you can see that you can show answers. I would click on that and see what answers that are offered, because most of the Kahoots are made by the public. It's almost like Wikipedia that way. But it also means that you can't always verify exactly how correct or well spelled or anything else comes into the Kahoot. So you can have a look at the question. You can work out the ticks here, tell you which ones are the correct answer. So 2 halves are made by something a whole into 2. Cutting, dividing, sharing are the correct answers. Yeah, they all work. And you can slowly scroll down and read all of the questions and then think to yourself, does this Kahoot meet the content that I'm after? And is it going to be accessible for the children? And is it all correct? Let's make the assumption you've found a Kahoot. That's awesome. What you will want to do is you will want to hit the play button that is over here on the left. When you click on play, it's going to give you 2 options. So we'll click on play. You can see here we have our 2 options. One is to teach it straight away. Now that's where we would bring it up in front of the class, and if we're in a classroom, you'd put it up on your big screen. And if you're in a Google Meet, you might put it on your shared screen and the students would be able to see it. So I'll actually show you, if I click on Teach, it opens up a new tab. So you can see up the top here, it's bumped it open into a new tab. That new tab loads with everything that we need. At first, this page can feel a bit overwhelming, but most of the time you're just going to click classic mode. You can scroll down into game options. One of the things that some people do is they put a friendly nickname generator on. The reason you do that is then students can't type in their own name, and that's usually done so that they don't type in anything rude. But I've always enforced that when you click on here, you type in your name, capital letter at the start, and that's it. And as long as you enforce it or you're consistent with your own rules, it should be fine not to need the generator, because the generator anonymizes it. Thank you for waiting for me on that one. And then when you want to look at the data, it's not so helpful later on. So when we click on Classic, it'll take us to this page where you would direct the students to www.kahoot.it. The easiest way to do that is to already have that link available on Seesaw or the Google Classroom, and then also to enforce students bookmarking it. Once they have that link, they go to a separate page that looks like this. This is the page that students will be directed to. They just have to enter the game pin. The game pin is this number up the top here. It's usually 6 or 7 digits, and it's something you can show to the class on your screen, or you can type it into a Google Meet chat and they can copy and paste it across. You can verbalize it. There's lots of ways to get it across. As the players enter, their names will start to pop up on the screen. And on the left-hand side of the screen, it will show you how many people are currently in the Kahoot. And that way, when you're at the appropriate amount, you know that you can press the start button on the right-hand side. And that will start you going through all of the questions that are in the Kahoot. Now, as students work their way through each question, it will tell them at the end of each question which answer was the correct one. So that can provide a really rich learning opportunity. So I don't mind using Kahoots at the start of a concept and we're just seeing what they know. And then we talk about it after each question, because while the timer says that they have 30 seconds to answer a question, once that 30 seconds is up, you decide when you're going to go to the next question. So you control that time. You can also use this as a formative assessment in the middle, or even somewhat of a summative assessment at the end of a concept to really see what students know, because their name is tracked against their data of answers if they filled their name in correctly. So that's one way of using Kahoot, and it can be done live in the classroom, and you can do it live on a Google Meet, and that way you know that they're there in the room with you as the questions are asked. You would have to really watch each of their little screens just to ensure maybe that no one's over their shoulder helping. So it's not a perfect assessment for online, but it will give you a pretty decent overall score of how they're going, especially if you say to them, look, we need you to do this on your own. Make sure nobody is around you pointing out what the correct answer is. So that's one way of administering Kahoot. The other way is to, again, press play over here, the green button, and instead of teaching it, you can assign this Kahoot. So let's have a look what happens when I click on assign. So what we mean by assign is we're going to let students tackle the challenge of the quiz of this Kahoot whenever they click on the link that we give them. So they're not competing against other people in real time. So starting at the top here, you can see you should set a date that they should complete it by. So you can say, all right, we're going to do this Kahoot by the end of the week. Or if you're going to set it sort of on the day, you can just say, all right, we're going to set it for being finished today. And you're going to set a time that meets whatever needs you have. You're in control of that. And then for options, you can take the question timer off. Now, I usually do this because if I'm getting them to do it asynchronously in their own time, there's no use rushing them. One of the great things about Kahoot is it makes children feel challenged and they sort of like engaged, and it brings out that competitive spirit. But that's also one of its biggest flaws, and that people freak out within that time limit. So if you're setting the students to do it whenever they get the link, I would turn the question timer off and let them really have some time to think about it. This will especially work for any sort of research questions where you don't actually mind if it's an open book sort of test. So you turn that off unless you have a real need to leave it there. We won't go through the other ones because most of them aren't too important right now. We'll just click create so we can make a streamlined video. So now that we've created this assigned Kahoot, which is an asynchronous Kahoot, it's one that the students can click a link and go into whenever works for them. You can see this page comes up here and it tells you what the name of the Kahoot was. Now, this is the important part. In the summary, we can see that 0 players have played so far. You can invite more players by copying the URL being the website address. So that's the link. So if you copy that URL and you paste it to Seesaw or into your Google Classroom or into your Google Meet chat thread, the students can then access it at that time. And so then they will just go through the 15 questions or however many are in the Kahoot without a timer and at their own speed. So you can set that as something that they do at home in their own time, and that's perfectly fine. If you want to verify the integrity of that assessment, you can set it in a Google Meet and just say to everybody, look, there's no timer. I'm not going to ask the questions. You're going to read them and go through them. So you'll need students who can read. But you're going to stay on the screen. And that way you can see whether they are looking around, getting help or anything like that. And if someone's taking a long time, you can maybe sort of ask whether they're needing to research or not, unless it's a Kahoot that you don't mind that they research. If it's not about knowing it, but about being able to find the answers, that's also not a bad way to do it. So you copy the link, you paste it out to students. When students click on the link, they enter their name, they enter the quiz, and then they just set about answering the questions without feeling that rush of the live Kahoot performance. So those are our two ways of using Kahoot: playing it live, assigning it as an asynchronous link. You can see that we can do it in person in class. We can do it straight away or over a period of time if they have the link. You can do it in Google Meets, and you can do it so that you're watching them complete it, and that way you're getting some sort of authenticity over this assessment. It's not perfect through that method or manner, but it will give you some level of control. Hopefully this video has made you feel more confident in finding a Kahoot, searching for a Kahoot, and playing it either live or asynchronously. Thumbs up for that. Thank you for watching the video.